What's up everyone, here we are with my review and recap of the latest weekly challenges, January week 4. This time we had a pretty decent lineup of races, and they kept getting better and better. For those of you who may not have completed the challenges as of yet, hopefully this offers you some cars to consider using. I try to use cars I haven't driven before, or haven't driven that much, which adds to the challenge for me. Now I'll quickly go through each race and showcase any highlights or blunders I had, and what adjustments I made to any cars to make it more challenging for the race it was used in. And also show you the strategy I used for the 5th race, which has always been a race with tire wear and fuel consumption, and can be the most challenging of the bunch. The first race is the Sunday Cup Classic, 2 laps at Goodwood Motor Circuit, and for this slow race I chose to drive the Porsche 356 GT Carrera Speedster with 0 upgrades and only racing soft tires. It's obviously more powerful than the rest of the cars in the field, but I didn't expect it to be this much faster, but the challenge ended up being trying to control this car. I quickly got myself into P2, but as you see, the back end of this car wants to swing out on turns, and it's very easy to spin out or crash into the AI when overtaking, so be very easy on the throttle if using this car. Here, coming towards the end of the first, I made a move for P1 and got it with the switcheroo. I thought we were going to crash into each other, but I was able to maneuver around it. It was pretty clear sailing from then, even with this little blunder here, when completely airborne, but managed to keep it together on the landing and keep the lead. P2 wasn't far behind. Coming to the finish, I ended up putting a little distance on P2, and I was able to keep it clean the rest of the way, fortunately. Learning to handle this car was the main challenge for me in this race. Second race is the Sylvia Sisters, 3 laps at Deep Forest Raceway Reverse, and for this one, I'm driving the 1998 Nissan Sil 80. I lowered the power of this car to try to make it a more challenging race, and here are the adjustments I made. It's fully upgraded, I just added weight and lowered the horsepower. Heading into the second lap, I moved up to P4, but as you see here I lost it. I was gaining positions on turns, taking them faster and braking later than the AI, so that was the advantage I had, because the top of the field had more power than me. Then I lost control and crashed, but managed to hold it together and stay behind P4. After the U-turn, I was back in P4 and had a little drag race battle with P3, and I had to use nitrous just to keep up, and once I got into 5th gear I was able to get in front by just a bit. Then heading into this next turn, he braked early and I was able to get ahead, and then I had to try to make some moves to catch up to P1 and 2, who had some good distance on me. On the final turn, I had already caught up, and was able to get P2 on the turn heading into the straight, and now I had to use the upcoming turns to catch P1, since I'm obviously lacking in power. And again on this bend, I lost control and hit the wall, but held it together luckily. After using up more nitrous, I was finally able to catch P1 and take the lead by outbraking him on the turn. I was able to hold off P2 by using a little more nitrous just to stay ahead and got myself the win, which definitely wasn't easy. A great race and I was lucky to get the victory. The third race is the race of turbo sports cars, 5 laps at Grand Valley Highway 1 Reverse. In this one I'm driving a 2014 Alfa Romeo 4C, and I made some adjustments to this car as well. Fully upgraded, I just lowered the ECU to make the race competitive. This car was actually really fun to drive, it handles very well. I think this was my first time driving the 4C, so it was a lot of fun learning it on the fly. It was better than I expected. In the second lap, I was in P6 and was able to move into P4 pretty easily. I could have lowered the power a little more to make it more of a challenge, but at this point I said whatever and just raced. And by the end of the second I was in P2 with P1 in my sights, but I figured it wouldn't be easy to catch up since he put quite a bit of distance on the field by this point. I caught up, but quickly learned how much faster P1 is than me, so it would come down to trying to gain ground on turns and with late braking, and that's what I did on the very next turn.
Yeah, boy!
And that was pretty much it. I was able to keep the lead on the final 2 laps and even put some decent distance on P2 after the pass, all due to the great handling of the 4C. Fourth race is the one-make special event in the Civic Type R, 5 laps at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and again I lowered the power to make the race competitive. I lowered the output adjustment and the power restrictor, and also fully upgraded. I picked up a few positions quick, but then realized it would again come down to outbraking the AI on turns, as you see them taking off on me. I took off a little too much power and wondered if I could win. But then on this turn, got a couple more positions and realized I can actually win by outbraking them. Just gotta drive as clean as possible the rest of the race. Second lap, got up to P3 and just had to keep using the turns to gain ground until I had enough to make the overtakes. A couple corners later, I made the pass for P2. Here in the third, I went for the lead, but went a little too wide, tried to keep up, but got overtook and had to wait for my next chance.
Whoa. Bogus! Didn't expect that. Here we go! Psych!
That opportunity came a couple corners later and I was able to keep it this time. And that was it. Kept the lead for the final 2.5 laps and actually gapped the field by a lot. Wasn't expecting it to be by that much with the power the AI had over me, but late braking for the win. The final race of this week's challenges is the World Touring Car 800, 10 laps at Tokyo Expressway east clockwise, and for this race I'm driving the Group 3 Ford GT race car, and this is my first time using it. This race had fuel consumption and tire wear, and I'm on racing soft tires. Make sure you have intermediates, because it possibly can rain during the race, as it did for me. I moved up the field bit by bit while I was getting used to the Ford GT, which handles very nicely. There was no need to lower the power on this one, as the final race always has powerful cars and isn't always the easiest to win. I had my fuel map set to 6 so I could get a full 5 laps out of the tank, and at the end of the 5th is when I pitted while being in P1. I exited in P3, but with the AI pitting at different points, I knew I would regain P1 eventually. I switched to intermediates. I checked the radar and saw the rain coming, and it started to fall during the 6th lap. Starting the 7th lap, I was able to head into P1 with the help of the AI pitting, and my only concern now was how much rain would fall and how wet it would make the track. In the 9th lap, things started to change in terms of handling. The intermediates on the rear wore off a lot, and it started getting harder to control the car in the rain. I entered the 10th and final lap with my rear tires completely shot, and that made this lap a bit of a struggle, so I had to drive a little conservatively so I wouldn't spin out or crash. I had a few close calls, but this was the worst, but I managed to hold on, but this lap was definitely a struggle to complete. Now here at the end, with P2 not far behind, I held on for the win, but was close to losing it on the final lap, concluding week 4's challenges with the hardest race. I must say I found this to be a really good lineup of races. Again, aside from the first race always being a slow one, using the Porsche really did make it a challenge for me, plus getting to put the Porsche finally on the track was pretty cool to do. Race 2 ended up being more of a challenge than I expected in the SIL 80, but I'm glad I lowered the power enough to make it a competitive race. Race 3 was a welcome surprise, learning how well the Alfa Romeo drives and how smooth it handles. I'm very happy with that choice for the race. Race 4, the one-make special event, was okay. Since I'm already used to driving the Civic, it was basically just another race to get done, but lowering the power did make it somewhat of a challenge. And race 5, the hardest of the bunch, wasn't expecting the rain, which almost cost me the race at the end, but driving the Ford GT was really cool since I hadn't driven it before. All in all, a much better week of challenges, maybe one of the best since the weekly challenges started. If the first races are always going to be slow car races, they should add a few more slow cars to the game, or use different races. And maybe start adding BOP to all the races to add to the challenge, but I'm quite happy with the lineup we got this time. Please like, comment and subscribe, and see you next time.